Hello and welcome to Office Hours. Office Hours number 690. 690 episodes we've done of this thing. I'm Blaine Bartlett, and David is at Super Bowl this week, so he may or may not be able to get away from some of the stuff that he's doing to join us. And if he does come in, that's going to be frosting on the cake. So you're going to have me for a while. The idea of Office Hours, when David and I first put this together, was a platform where we could actually bring guests on and talk about, in my language here, the soul of business. What keeps us connected to that spirit that gives the organization its life, and it takes on all kinds of different permutations, all kinds of different looks, and some of it's pretty tactical, some of it's pretty abstract. Some of it's pretty functional. Some of it's pretty, kind of pedestrian in the sense that it's not rocket science. As change is occurring, and our guests today are going to be talking about this because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. As change begins to occur, what's interesting about change is not necessarily the change itself. What's interesting about change is the disruption to existing relationships that change causes, and how people actually wrap their arms around these shifting relational dynamics makes a big difference in terms of how the organization can actually position itself to thrive, not just survive in changing and turbulent times. And not the least of which, when we're talking about change, the one that actually comes to mind, I think, in a lot of people's minds right now, particularly around business, is the presence of AI. Artificial intelligence. You talk about disrupting relationships in a lot of different ways, and how we actually begin to increase our valuation as an organization by using AI as a lever, and I mean that literally, as a lever to both increase productivity, but also find ways to connect more directly from the spirit of the organization into the marketplace in which we find ourselves operating. So my first guest today here is out of London, and I'm very excited to have him on the show. He's got some fascinating ideas around AI and how it can actually be used to increase an organization's valuation. So I'm going to just have Danny come up out of the green room here, and folks, Danilo McGarry, if I got that right, McGarry.
But can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Hi, Blaine. How's it going?
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you here. Good to have you here. Now,
likewise.
Yeah, top 20 in the world for AI. I want to just kind of land on that, and then we're going to kind of pivot a little bit in terms of the valuation conversation here. But top 20 in the world for AI, in what context?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me this. So I was previously head of AI for Citigroup globally, head of AI for UnitedHealth Group as well, which is the fourth largest AI program in the world. And UnitedHealth Group being fifth largest Fortune 500 company in the US. That was $1 billion program. And then, I've been in the AI world now for 20 years. I've worked with private equity groups. We've created unicorn companies using AI. So there's different analyst groups, companies like PwC, Ernst & Young, tech analyst groups as well. They rank some of us, the Times Magazine. So in all these different rankings, I'm 20, 25, top 50. But yeah, top 20 in the world, according to PwC and some others.
Yeah, that's a fascinating metric. And 20 years in the business. I mean, 20 years ago, people had no inkling. I mean, I'll speak for myself, no inkling of AI. And I'm fortunate enough right now to be working with a CEO of a very fascinating AI company. And I'm not at liberty to talk about it necessarily outside of just to kind of mark that out. But what's on the horizon is just fascinating to me. I mean, leaps and bounds beyond what most people are familiar with, which would be ChatGPT or Gemini. How do we use AI? And this is kind of where we want to go with this. How do we use AI actually to increase valuation? And valuation has a number of different permutations to it, not just the market valuation, but also the value in the minds of the folks that are engaged in their interacting with the company.
Yeah, so you're right. So AI hasn't been that famous for 20 years. It's existed for over 60 years as a domain, as a topic, but it's really only picked up a lot of pace in the last 5 years or so. And then 3 years once OpenAI came to life. So the technologies that we have today, you're quite right. It's not just ChatGPT. We have agency. We have super narrow AI already. And this year is going to be the year of agency. So these are going to be AI systems that you just ask it to do something, and it's going to be able to navigate the screen and do the work of a human, pretty much. A software version of a human, right? So if you ask it to go and find you a lawnmower for under $50, wherever, give it some parameters, it will end up buying it for you. If you ask it to go and make a booking for a client, make a restaurant booking, whatever it may be, it will be able to do that. So this is the year of agency, and this is a really big shift in how companies will be able to have these digital workers working for them. Now, how does it all loop back to valuation?
Yeah.
So not to teach a duck how to suck eggs, but just very quickly, valuations of companies are multiples of the revenue or the EBITDA profitability of a company. And which multiple do you apply? You will look at multiple M&A tables from historical events that have happened in previous M&A activities. So how does AI increase the valuation of a company? It can do that by a couple of ways. You can use AI to generate new products and services. So nowadays, it's becoming much, much faster and much cheaper for a company to launch a new product, a new service, because they can use AI to code that product. They can use AI to then do the marketing for that product. They can use AI to do the cold calling to acquire clients for that product, etc. So if you create a new revenue stream, you increase the top line of that company, whatever multiple you're applying to that company, that valuation of the company will go up inevitably. The other way you can use AI to increase the valuation of a company is by improving the profitability of that company. So, I recently just took a company from 900 million valuation to 4.9 billion by using AI. And the way it was done was because we made a drastic improvement on the EBITDA of that company. We did that by deploying automations, by deploying AI agents for work that people would otherwise be doing. So when you look at the cost base of a company, the profitability line, it's hugely impacted by the cost of people and the cost of offices. These are the two biggest costs a company has generally. So if you're able to use AI to reduce the reliance on people, which means the amount of salaries and pensions and insurances that you're paying out, you improve the bottom line. And if you improve the bottom line, the multiple gets added to it, you improve the valuation of the company. So it sounds like a really easy concept, create new products and services, improve the profitability by making the company more efficient. But in fact, the way you do that, it really requires a lot of experience. So you need to deploy something called digital transformation. And that digital transformation is really taking that company from, like the company, for instance, recently in Luxembourg that I helped increase to 4.9 billion. It was a 15-year-old company doing accounting for clients in the private equity world. Very manual, people typing numbers on spreadsheets, then typing numbers on, accounting systems, very, very manual. Every time we acquired a client, we had to hire a whole new team of people to service that client. So revenues kept going up, but the cost base also kept going up in line with revenue. So the way we broke that is by making AI do some of that work and making the correlation between increasing revenue as well as increasing costs. So we managed to break that away, and then that's what caused the valuation to drastically go up. And then we created a lot of IP, a lot of products and services that we never had before as well, and increased the top line. So, very quickly, that's how you can use AI to increase the valuation of companies. I've done that multiple times, and some other people have done it as well.
Yeah. So, and as part of the introduction here, I mentioned that the difficulty that people encounter with change, and certainly AI as a disrupting force in the marketplace right now, is the disruption to relationships that change causes. Yeah. And when you're talking about some of this, and it's, it's what's the word here? It's the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Sure.
Jobs begin to be in question. Like you said, we've got people and office space. Yeah. And if we don't have people, we don't need office space. So all of that, you start eliminating some of that. It comes off the top line, obviously. So
Sure.
what's the displacement strategy for mitigating that disruptive influence with the people that are involved with that?
So there's two answers to this question depending on the time horizon that you're talking about.
Mhm.
So for the time horizon where agency comes to play this year and people's jobs are really going to come under risk, there's going to be, I think, a bit of a land grab by a lot of employers. They're going to use this and they're going to make as much profit out of it as possible.
Right.
When governments get involved and say, guys, this is not okay, unemployment rates are going up. Yes, taxes are going up because you guys are making more money, but we need people to stay in jobs in order not to create chaos. Eventually, what governments will have to do is they will have to impose a tax on companies using AI. And I've been pushing for this for decades. Um, so has
I've
Bill
heard that.
Gates as
Yeah.
well, and a number of other people. So you know how you need a license in order to sell liquor, or you need a license to be able to stay open a little later. So I believe the governments should be doing this. They should be able to impose a license on any company using AI and use the revenue from that license in order to help retrain people. The other
Mhm.
thing that governments are going to start doing as well is imposing restrictions on what percentage of people companies can actually fire, and imposing corporate redevelopment programs where they have to retrain the people who have lost their jobs in order to go into new business areas. Now, at the same time as this is happening, imagine in parallel, new products and services are being created by companies that they have never done before because of the power of AI. And this will generate new jobs and new opportunities. So my
Yeah.
hope is that there is some government intervention, and also that some companies just have the right culture and they don't think only about profits, and they
Yeah.
make the link between the two. We're letting people go because the old jobs don't exist anymore, but hey, there's an opportunity over there because we just created a new product or a new service. So my hope is that there's a bit of humans are going to behave a little bit, and shareholders and boards are not going to be pressuring CEOs too much to convert that profitability and do something good out of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is not a new scenario. I mean, if we go back in
Mm,
history, this has repeated itself over and over
yeah,
as new technologies come online. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, hey, I'm a buggy whip maker. What do I
yeah,
do now? Well, we're going to have to find ways to get you retrained and repositioned. And part of what happens here, and I'm going to just check this out with you, Danilo. Part of what happens is we move away from individual employees being a cog in an industrial wheel, and you talked about agency. To now, there's if we're doing this effectively, we're actually retraining people to tap into something that's creative for themselves. What is it that you would really love to participate in that would light you up?
yeah,
Rather than being a cog in a machine. How do you actually position this yourself? Now, you mentioned timelines. This
yeah,
is not happening overnight.
yeah.
Definitely. So there's a transitional phase here that needs to be mitigated. Is
Correct.
that a fair assessment?
It is. I mean, you mentioned a little bit of history, right? So when cars were invented,
Mhm.
before that, the main mode of transportation were horses, and they used to be horse shoemakers, people making horse food, taking care of horses, training horses, a whole industry around horses. When cars came into play, there was civil unrest. A lot of people lost their jobs. Something like 38% of jobs were lost
38%.
because
Yeah,
of
it
it.
was 36, 38, something like that. I remember. Yeah.
So now, but the thing is, I think this is a little bit different. This is going to be a little bit bigger because, I mean, if you look at the World Economic Forum, they're coining this as the fourth industrial revolution.
Yep.
So think of revolutions. So what were the previous three? The discovery and invention of the steam engine, the discovery and invention of coal, and the printing press,
Printing
right?
press.
Before the printing press, people were making stuff out of wood and all kinds of things. So this is pretty major. There's only been three other major industrial revolutions before. This is the fourth one, but I think this is the biggest one out of all of them. I agree that this will happen over a time horizon, but it's going to happen so fast. in comparison to the other changes. So for instance, transition from horses to cars took a good 40, 50 years because cars are very expensive, they didn't work very well, and it was very difficult to mass produce cars. AI is being mass produced already.
Yeah.
The only thing that's missing at the moment is just a bit more computational power, which is going to be acquired through nuclear reactors, through all kinds of partnerships with very rich oil state countries. So that will happen over the next year or two. So after that, there is nothing else holding AI back, unless regulators, lawmakers get in the way, which they won't. Because as soon as a country does that, they become less competitive than other countries who don't do this.
Exactly.
And if you look at the economic opportunity of AI, it's very famous by various reports to generate anything between $7 to $15 trillion in economic value over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, to give you an idea, the world GDP is 100 trillion.
Yeah.
We're talking about a creation of 15% of the world's GDP within a 5-year horizon.
Crazy.
This is bigger than the green movement. This is bigger than getting away from hydrocarbons, believe it or not. So this is huge, and companies are smelling the money, and they are going to pivot towards it as fast as they can.
Danilo, I want to thank you. I mean, David and I both have got a couple of different shows. We'd love to have you back on. This is a 15-minute truncated, just kind of, let's lift the cover up and
talk
take
about
a look
the world's biggest topic. Yeah,
exactly. So we want to give you time for a little bit deeper dive in this. So we'll be circling back with you.
Let's do it, and put a couple of skeptics on as well. Let's have a bit of a debate.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get a panel together here. You can find out more about what Danilo's up to at danilomcgarry.com, and you can see it in the Sharon here. So that's his LinkedIn site, and we'll get back in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Blaine. Thanks everybody listening. Take care.
You bet. Thank you. Wow. I mean, 15% of the world's GDP. I mean, that one kind of surprised me. I did not know it was that big. That is something else. So, talking about automation, talking about effectiveness and efficiency. Our next guest, Andrew Mentor, and I believe Andrew's in the studio. There we go. Bismoto. There we go. Hey, how you doing, Andrew?
I'm wonderful. I'm not going to add 15 trillion to the world's GDP, but hopefully adding some value somewhere.
You're going to be with what you're doing here now. Yeah, you got you use computer vision, and I'm going to unbundle that term a minute. Computer vision to deliver quick, objective, automated, and easily repeatable movement assessments to quantify how the body moves. Now, this is fascinating to me. Just coming up through university, I was a gymnast, and we did physiological work. Just kind of is putting together my routine. Just kind of how does my body move? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to pay attention to? That sort of thing. What is it that you're doing? From the computer vision perspective, what's the intent? Number one, why is it important? Number two, and then how are you deploying it? Number three.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
And, absolutely.
Yeah. So, we're measuring how people move, and we want to do it simply. So, you can use your mobile device, and be able to assess quickly. And the reason we're doing it is because we look at movement as a vital sign. So here's my analogy, right? Doctors are measuring vitals such as cholesterol. Let's take that one. We could have a whole separate discussion on the effectiveness of a standard lipid panel, but let's keep that out for now.
We won't go there.
Yeah. So let's just say cholesterol is 250. So bad. Mm-hmm. And there are intervening strategies such as maybe changing your diet, exercise, hopefully not using statins, but something like that. And then you have wearables that measure, sleep, heart rate variability, your deep sleep or your REM sleep's bad. I don't know, supplement with melatonin, don't scroll Instagram for half an hour before you go to bed, or exercise. So I think there's no argument that exercise can help with a number of issues, including your poor cholesterol, your poor sleep. But here's the problem is exercise if you're injured, you can't move.
Right.
And so, like, if you just even looking at back pain, I think there's a CDC report that said something like 39% of Americans experience some sort of back pain in the last 3 months. So, that looks, yes, whether it's back pain or knee pain or ankle pain, someone's had something, right? And so, back pain's debilitating. I mean, you can't exercise, but you can't sometimes do simple things like carrying your groceries or, carrying your kid around. And most of these back injuries don't happen because someone slips on ice or banana peel or whatever you want. It's because there's some fundamental problem with their movement. Just like you may ultimately have a heart problem if you have issues with your cholesterol. But pardon the long-winded buildup, but we see movement as a vital sign because how do you understand if if you're susceptible to back pain, if you're not understanding how you move, if you don't understand your hip mobility, for instance. So back pain occurs for one of 3 reasons: bad hip mobility, poor hamstring strength, or bad core. So if one of those is not functioning like it should, your back is carrying too much load. So you may not know that a back injury is coming because your back's fine. Just like you don't know you're having a heart issue coming unless you measure your cholesterol. Yeah. The same deal here. We're trying to measure how you move. If you're moving poorly, let's give you some intervening strategies, some corrective exercise videos, improve how you're moving, and make you less susceptible to injury.
So with Fismodo, I mean, you held up your phone there. I'm assuming that this is an app, first of all.
It is. There's an enterprise version. So some of you may be familiar with Stretch Lab.
Yeah.
So we're in every single Stretch Lab facility in the country, also Australia, Mexico, and Japan. And so they can use it with people that come in, they want to get stretched. So they'll do an assessment and they say, okay, Blaine, looks like your shoulder's, acting poorly today, a little less mobile than last time. Let's have a focus on that. So that's the enterprise, what we call the enterprise app. Then there's also the mobile app on, smartphone device. And then there's all your last guest talking about AI. There's the kind of the middleware, which is your web dashboard where your trainer, coach, doctor can see all the information and work with you, tracking history, a number of things. So it's really a 3 suites of software coming together.
That's fascinating. So as a layperson, just walking around my house, I could actually use the phone app as an example here to just begin to get some rudimentary data that I could then use to move to that next phase. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, in fact, it's funny. I was meeting with somebody in a coffee shop a couple of weeks ago and was talking about this, and he's like, wow, I'd love to see how that works. And I said, fine. And I propped this thing up against my coffee cup, backed up 6 feet. You get directions, on the screen about what to do. And, it's raise your hands over your head and do 3 squats. And so we did it there in the coffee shop. It was awesome. I didn't actually think it would work because you can't really have a lot of people in the background.
Right.
But it did. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Anywhere you want. And we want you to be able to do it as often as possible because, so think about this. If you're measuring sleep once or any of these things that we're talking about, maybe once every 6 months, that's not really valuable data because there's so many variables. Were you on a flight the day before, driving 6 hours, stress, you name it. It's the same thing with movement. It doesn't help if you're getting these measurements infrequently. So because ours takes 30 seconds, let's try and have you measure, once a week, what your baseline is and go from there.
Yeah, that the metaphor that comes to mind as you're talking about that is I can take a still photo, but that gives me just a moment in time. But if I can stitch together a number, now I've got a movie that actually can begin to show some literally show transitional movement.
Yeah, and I'll just go a little bit beyond that, because there's two cameras on the phone. So on the back we have a LiDAR 3D camera.
Right.
On the front is just the color camera, so facial recognition. We wanted to be able to create something obviously that's quick and objective, but also where you can self-assess. If we're using the back camera, you can't see your screen, so it'd be very, very, very difficult to self-assess. So the challenge was, how are we using the front camera, a 2D color camera, to approximate 3D and be able to track all frontal planes? And we were able to use something called inverse kinematics, so where the measurements we're getting and capturing all three planes of motion is pretty cool. We got a nice patent on that, and the accuracy that we have with the 2D is as accurate as when we did 8 years ago use the Microsoft Kinect 3D camera. And so now you can self-assess. You don't need anybody there, and that's what we're shooting for.
Oh, that is amazing. That is truly amazing. I love it. Working, Fizmodo.com. We're going to put this up on the Sharon. But I'm assuming that people can just link into the website for information. And if they wanted to get a hold of you, there's a media kit. So there we go, podcastcollective.io, and that gives you more information than you're probably going to want to digest immediately. But this is how you can get a hold of Andrew here. So I'm fascinated by this. I would love to be able to explore this more personally. So, and like I mentioned to our previous guest, we've got a couple of other shows here. And then, Dave sends his apologies. He can't join today, but we'd like to get you back on with, either he and I, or both of us together, and we'll see what we can do with that.
I'd love that. Blaine. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Andrew. You've been a great guest. The great information. I love what you're up to with this. This is a great tool. And, particularly with there's people sitting around, day in and day out. They got to, nothing happens until something moves. So you got to move. If I got back pain, move it.
It's been a lot of fun. And next time we can talk about the AI that we're doing. So, recommendation engines, to be able to tell you, whole nother topic, but on the heels of your first guest, that's a lot of fun. For another time. That's
for another time. We just got to lift the cover here. So we'll see where we go next.
Perfect.
Okay, Andrew Mentor, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Blaine.
You bet. Love it. I love it. This is, both of our guests. And when I talk about the disruption that change causes to relationships, change, we've become very, very sedentary in our lives. And that is a change that has occurred in most of our lifetimes. We've become more and more sedentary. The disruption to the relationship that I have with my body has been complicated. It's really been tampered with. So anything that I can do that begins to reconnect in a fundamental way, a healthy relationship with my body, is only going to serve me down the road. And that's what we want to be taking a look at here, is just kind of, how do we keep ourselves engaged? How do we keep ourselves moving in the direction that we need to be moving? As Einstein, famously said, nothing happens until something moves. You've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to move. So that being said, movement, here's what's an interesting note. Leaders cause movement. That's what leaders do. They cause things to move. They cause things to change. And managers don't do that necessarily. And here's what I mean by that. The role of a manager in most organizations is organized around stability and predictability. The role of a leader in the organization is to cause movement that moves us towards a place we've never been before, and it can appear chaotic. And so there's a push me, pull me sort of a dynamic that comes into play here around, the chaos that oftentimes leaders can cause, but also a need for people to have some experience of being in control. And that dichotomy can be a very interesting dance to do, because when people start getting frustrated and they start getting angry and they start getting resentful, those are all secondary emotions that are a function of feeling out of control. And that's what we want to, as a leader, that's one of the things that we want to be able to mitigate, because that's one way that we start getting ourselves reconnected to the spirit of what the business is about. So Michael Parker is my next guest here, and I'll just bring him on up. CEO of You Are a CEO. He's a founder and chief executive officer of You Are a CEO. So, Michael, welcome to the show. If you came in late, David isn't here right now. He's at the Super Bowl, so he sends his apologies. We will, as I've mentioned to the other two guests, find another slot here for you where you can have access to both he and I again. But that being said, let's just kind of jump into this question of chaos and control. Yeah, I mean, you've got a free web class that I think that you want to talk a little bit about here, but you've got some very interesting background experience yourself in both lean and and some of the stuff around Aikido. So let's talk about that.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes, well, it's a pleasure to be with you here, Blaine, and I look forward to maybe getting some time with you and David at another time. But yes, I'm Michael E. Parker, and I really have a passion for helping trapped entrepreneurs move to becoming freedom CEOs. And a big portion of that has to do with the difference between chaos and control. And understanding that entrepreneurs are really good at solving a problem. And that is what made them an entrepreneur, is they found a problem in the market that they could solve. But CEOs built systems that actually run the business. And this is the difference between those entrepreneurs that actually create a 7-figure business and beyond. 7 times in 7 different businesses, I've created a 7-figure business, and I learned a lot, went through a lot of bumps and bruises, made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot. But through that, I've been able to build systems that actually help entrepreneurs actually use a pattern and a blueprint that will lead to a certain result if they follow it. And that's what I'm so passionate about. When I talk about You Are a CEO, it's not just the aspect of working with entrepreneurs, but I'm really saying you're the CEO of your life, your business, and your wealth. Because what I found is, if you don't really understand the importance of how your life impacts the business, you're in for a rude awakening if you don't think your childhood has anything to do with your business, the way you communicate, the way you deal with relationships, how you deal with your insecurities, how you deal with disappointment. All these are seeds that come into the garden of your business and determine how far your business can go. And then the business must become a vehicle to create wealth. But once we create wealth, we have to understand taxes. And so you want to understand the freedom for life, the freedom for business. And then you got to understand something about becoming free from a wealth literacy perspective. And so I try to, tackle this. And the last thing I'll say briefly is that just taking CEO and really looking at it as an acronym, not just CEO, Chief Executive Officer, but I see it as a mindset and a mentality of charge, expand, overcome. We must take immediate, imperfect action when we really want to do great things. You have to know how to charge. We have to be able to expand, meaning we're always growing. We're always moving past our comfort zone. And then we've got to have a willingness to overcome things, because there's going to be obstacles. And if you don't know how to overcome, you just won't be able to be as successful. So this is a little bit about what I do and why I'm so happy to be here with you.
Well, I love that. Yeah, this fits perfectly. I mean, I've been working in leadership development for about 40 plus odd years, and some of the largest companies and organizations on the planet, as well as entrepreneurs and startups. And one of the things that just very simplistically, leaders cause movement. That's all that they do. And I mentioned that right at the top of the show.
Right.
The idea of causing movement in service of what? For the sake of what? I mean, there's a worthy ideal out there in some way, shape, or form, which is where entrepreneurs actually begin to shine brightly as they see something out there and they've got a worthy ideal that they want to move towards. Where they get tripped up, and I've worked with a lot of startups where they get tripped up and moving beyond that 6-figure mark and into that next level, either the 7 or 8. And there's usually some very clear demarcation points where the mindset, it's not necessarily the skill set, but the mindset gets in the way. In your work with your clients, how do you actually, and I know how I do it, but how do you actually work with some of these very prideful people that say, I'm doing this. I'm the king of the hill here. And hubris can bite me in the butt real quick if I'm not real careful around this. So how do you actually get to the point where people go, okay, let me back up the truck a little bit. I'm willing to listen and learn now.
Well, I think it's very important that you begin to deal with, you have to deal with the mind and with belief. And a lot of times people they think doubt is the absence of belief, but doubt really is a belief. It's a belief that it won't work. And getting people to understand that we think and then we feel and then we act. So our emotions are intensifying what we're thinking about, and we end up doing where our emotions intensify. So I start with getting, the belief system right. We talk about a mindset and then a skill set and a tool set that'll help you become an asset. And we know income follows assets, but you got to first become an asset. Then you can teach others in your business to become assets, and you learn how to accumulate and grow other assets that the business begins to create. And this is how all the wealth begins to come in. But it starts with you as a leader, as you mentioned, being able to move things toward a North Star that you've agreed to, that this is what the business was built for. This is what we're trying to do. And one of the great things I love about, all the things that can be done, I've actually created a webinar. I'm actually having a webinar tonight. It's called From Entrepreneur to CEO. And this is, again, helping individuals understand that there are some things and patterns that we can follow. I really, Blaine, my career started when I actually was handpicked by Akio Toyota, and I was sent to Japan to be trained by first generation lean experts and become really an expert in lean management. Went to Canada, North America, and that was my foundation that helped me learn one of the greatest management disciplines in the world, which helped me to understand how to eliminate waste as well as develop systems. And I've been able to help Fortune 100 companies as a consultant, and then also be in the entrepreneurial space. And what I found is going into these big companies with big budgets and big money and big organization charts, and then working with the person who's just trying to get their business to six figures, I found that these people are exactly the same. They both have issues. Their fathers, their mothers, they have insecurities and fears and all kinds of things. What separates them is a company that has a very clear purpose of what they're supposed to be doing and has very clear systems that allow them to scale. And so once you understand that, then the entrepreneur can begin to see, I'm not so far away from the big company out there that's making billions. I have to change how I think and change what I'm doing, and I automatically will be able to scale into something more than what I have. And that's what I get excited about, is helping entrepreneurs realize that benefit.
Yeah, you started getting excited right there. You were talking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer. I mean, change the way you think, and what you're actually addressing begins to change itself. Change how you look at something, it changes in response to that. Yeah, you mentioned you've got a webinar tonight, right?
Yes.
From entrepreneur to CEO, and I want to give you a moment to plug this, because I think that this would be an incredibly valuable asset. Or resource, more specifically, for people that are listening to this. Where can they find out about this, and where can they possibly sign up for it if it's not too late already?
Absolutely. Yeah. People still have time to sign up. This is at FromEntrepreneur2CEO.com. From Entrepreneur to CEO.com. And I'm going to really be breaking some things down. We're going to spend a couple hours together, and I'm going to be really going in and just unveiling. This is a free webinar, and I'm going to be really breaking down some of the 4 critical secrets that I've discovered really helps entrepreneurs move into being CEOs. And what's so just alarming, there's nowhere to go for CEO school. Like, no one tells you how to do this. Like, if you come up the ranks in a corporate world, you climb the ladder, and there's a lot of politics and bureaucracy. But what is an entrepreneur who just started something that makes money, and they're headed towards 6 figures, or they're already at 6 figures, and they want to go to the next level? Where do you go to learn how to be a CEO? There's really nowhere to go. And I saw this problem in the marketplace. I said, I can't think of anything more powerful than helping to cultivate leaders to transition from entrepreneurial thinking to CEO thinking, and to not think that these other larger companies are better than them. It's just simply a set of systems and rules and thought patterns that you need to adopt. and you can get the benefits. So I would love to have anyone that is seeing this to come out and spend some time with me. I'm going to really be giving a lot of really good things that I know can be a benefit to those who resonate with the things that I'm saying.
Great. And you can see this on his little blurb down there by his name here, from entrepreneur to CEO.com. Don't put the spaces in. Don't put the spaces
Right.
in. Yeah, you won't get there if you do that. But from entrepreneur to CEO. And there we go. And this is, in order to find out more about what Michael's up to, Michael, I love what you're doing here. michaelparker.com. And to your point, there's not a school for CEOs that I'm aware of. I mean, and I've taught in business schools, and that's not what we teach typically.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why, we really need something like this. And I'm actually, one of the highlights of the things I'm going to be going over is just the 5 systems that everybody needs. These 5 systems will immediately change the game for any entrepreneur to take them to the next level, wherever they're at. Everyone needs these, and it's so important. So it's such a pleasure being here. And again, I'm Michael E. Parker, because there's a lot of Michael Parkers out there, Blaine. So I had to let them know about my E, which stands for Emmanuel. That's my name, and it's such a pleasure. I'm so grateful to be here, and hopefully I can come back when you and David are here and we can talk shop.
You got it. We'll get you back here. You got a lot to bring to the table, and like I've said to the other 2 guests, we've just kind of lifted the cover here and took a peek, and yeah, it's enticing. So we'll be back, and we'll have you back as well. Thanks for being here, Michael.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Folks, thank you for listening here. The takeaway today, in the spirit of office hours, the takeaway today for me has to do with the power of relationship. Whether it's being disrupted by AI, or whether you're become sedentary and you're sitting and your relationship with your body has gotten a little bit funky. Or if you're a CEO or a leader in any organization and you're going to that next level, your relationship with your mindset makes a big difference. And that's, as far as I can tell, everything functions around relationship. There is nothing in this planet, and there's nothing in this universe that doesn't have a relational dynamic to it. Speaking of which, you see in the Sharon down below here, leader.blainebartlett.com, leadership-mindset-mastermind. And there's also a QR code here. If you want to find out more about a mastermind that I conduct, it's a year-long program. I do this with a very, very good partner friend of mine, a guy that I've worked with for a number of years, Dolan White. We together have got this 52-week mastermind program. This is the 5th year that I've been running it. We are right now compiling a waiting list for the next session. So go to the landing page here, find out more information about it. And if anything that you read there kind of piques your interest, feel free to book a conversation with me. There's a calendar link there that we can go in some detail about what it is. You won't be disappointed. At the very least, you'll have some information about what you might be wanting to pay some attention to. So until next week, I'm going to just thank you for listening to me as I hosted the show alone today. David, like I said, is at the Super Bowl, and I can't wait to hear some of the stuff that he's going to be bringing back to the table. And Friday, Gigi, you correct me if I'm off on this, but I don't know if he's got his Friday just given where he's at, with the Super Bowl, if the Friday program is going on tomorrow or not. But if it is, you will be getting some information about that, I'm sure. In the meantime, thank you guys for listening. It's been a pleasure to host this show with you today, and I will see you next Thursday. And there's a couple of other office hour shows that'll happen next week as well. Take care. Thank you.